I think that community centers are the glue. They really are for a region. By their nature, they're designed to be places for neighbors to gather and get to know each other and work side by side on issues across political and religious differences. It's funny because during Helene, everybody was like, oh, we're going to create resilience hubs. And I'm like, what? Community centers are resilience hubs by definition. That's what they do all day long is they respond to their community's needs.
Welcome to WNC HeartBEAT. Today's guest is a connector, listener, and someone deeply embedded in Western North Carolina's mountain communities. She is Susan Garrett. Welcome, Susan. And you are the Community Programs Manager at WNC Communities, an organization that empowers people across 20 counties of our region. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
When you say you empower communities, what does that phrase feel like in your gut? How does it show up in a real person's experience?
I'm really grateful you asked this question because um, when our organization selected that word empower, I had just a tiny bit of nervousness about it because some people hear that word and they feel like, well, we don't need to be empowered. We're already powerful. And that is so true of our community. So I'm glad to have a chance to speak to that. Um, so to me, that means that we are not, giving someone power. Everyone has that power already. What we're doing is lifting up their best practices, the community center's best practices, for everyone to see and hopefully to emulate. Where there are gaps in people's knowledge, we're teaching those best practices. So when I think of the definition that way, it hits my gut with happiness. And then as far as you said, what was the second part? Like, how does that experience for an individual?
Yeah, like what's a real concrete example of that?
So, okay, I'll give an example from our WNC Honors Awards event, which happened in November. Um, so we give out awards to all the community centers for their accomplishments. And prior to the awards ceremony, we have this sort of mingle space. It's like a poster session. We call it the Best Practices Gallery, where we have communities come and we have a big poster for each of them, highlighting a best practice. And everyone else at the event gets to sort of, walk around and learn from the other communities. So we were in that space, and one of the communities we highlighted was Texana community. They're out in Cherokee County, and they did this fantastic program where they worked with their local library and really expanded their computer lab, and then created this awesome after-school STEM program to help students that
Nice.
were really struggling. And at the end of the day, they all, showed massive improvement in their school studies, and so I just thought that was so incredible, and so they were one of the featured, um, communities. So that's an example of, lifting up these best practices so everyone else can see them and hopefully get inspired and, maybe copy those ideas. And then at the same turn, Brenda Blunt, who was the one of the, ambassadors from Texana there to talk about that, best practice, came up to me all excited in the best practice gallery. She said, "I already got a new idea from another community here that's one of the presenters, and that's, like, worth the whole, like, trip up here, to Harris Cherokee Resort." That's where the event was. And we haven't even gotten to the awards yet. I just loved hearing that because, it goes both ways. They are there with the best practice, and meanwhile, they are learning a best practice and getting excited. So I think that's what popped in my head as a very concrete example of how it landed for her.
WNC Communities really traces its roots back to organizations that were kind of building rural leadership even after World War II, if I'm right about that. And so, like, how many, like, I mean, not 100 years, but 75 years of tradition of like grassroots collaboration. From your perspective, what would one lesson be about community that you think only that amount of time could really teach?
I think a big lesson for everyone, a kind of ongoing lesson, is that it requires a lot of patience and stamina and open-heartedness to really create community. And when I say community, I don't mean just like, oh, there's a neighborhood. I mean, people know each other, they care about each other, and they're working, side by side on solutions to whatever that community's issues are, and coming together to celebrate as well, and across ideological differences.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So that takes time, a long time, and it's not just, "Oh, we're done, check that off," kind of thing. Um, you know, and I think a common issue that I hear from across Western North Carolina is this challenge between what we call the natives and the newbies. I don't know if your community has struggled with this so much, but some of them really have a hard time. Where we have what we call the legacy families. These are the families that have been active with WNC communities since the 1950s. So, we actually had somebody at the award ceremony who celebrated their 75th year with us. And then there's, so that tradition passes down through the family. And then there's people who just moved here from, wherever, New Hampshire, Florida, it doesn't matter. But they're excited about where they live and they want to participate and engage. And there can be some really serious culture clashes that go on with that. So I think the communities, there's another like big lesson. It's that the communities that I see that are really thriving and that have plenty of volunteers to do all their activities, they are the ones who figured out how to have open arms and welcome in everyone, whether native or newbie, and they're very conscious about doing that. So I think that's another big lesson learned is the better you can do that, the more likely, your community will thrive.
Susan, I think that's such a great sentiment to bring to the forefront in this conversation because we definitely have experienced that. And I'm kind of in the middle. Like I'm not from a legacy family, but I've been here for 20 years. And so I have um a lot of perspective and deep roots here, but I'm not a legacy family. So am I a native or a newbie? I don't know. But we do see this tension across our community. And you're very much right that openness and stamina and welcoming is key to bridging that issue or whatever you want to call it. And it can be successful. It can be, but you have to be patient and keep offering the compassionate invitation.
Yes, exactly.
I know that the standing theme at the Spring Creek Community Center, because our board is mostly newbies now at this point, and we're very sensitive to the fact that a lot of the families that have been here for generations are wary of the new. And so our goal is to really integrate them and their perspective and make sure that we're acting in a way that they feel comfortable with, where we can still like be a benefit to the community all around.
I think that's really wise. And the last time I was over there at Spring Creek, I thought your hallway, your history hallway did such a nice job of honoring that history of the legacy families. And I do think it's so much about kind of, how do you hold both? How do you hold the past and the future and meet, in the middle together with that? It's challenging. It's not like, oh, here's the formula, it's ongoing conversations like you guys were saying.
What I'm interested to hear your perspective on sort of, again, going back to this like grassroots work. It's long hours, volunteers, little wins, little communities. In your view, what makes a community ready to sort of meet its own solutions versus needing the outside support?
My first sort of, for what it's worth, reaction to that question is, from WNC community standpoint, we always want the communities to lead their solutions. So we're just coming with, well, whatever it is you want to do, what do you need? And how can we help you? And that's very much reflected in our history all the way up through today. Um, and as far as, you know, being ready to lead your own initiative, I think I just keep harkening back to the communities I see that are really successful, and I think some, like, big bullet points for what it's worth of what I see in those communities is a s at least one really strong leader, and with a vision, and not just their vision, but a vision that's connected directly to what their community needs that have been expressed are. And, I think it's really important for community centers, I just wanna get this in here, that they do a survey of their communities to find out, well, what do people want and need? So having a leader that's willing to champion that, or leaders, it doesn't have to be just one person. And ideally that I guess that would lead to my next bullet would be, um, you know, you you need to have a pool of leadership because one of the things that worries me in some of these small communities is there is only one person, and if that person goes away, like, poof, the whole thing could just sort of fall apart. So having, succession of leaders, people that are, like, being brought along and, learning, how to lead, that's really important.
On that topic, I wonder if you have any recommendations. We're always thinking through how the best way to sort of recruit like really good people into leadership. Because a lot of people, they're living their own lives, they're busy, they don't really want the responsibility. How do you draw people into these incredible people to these incredible roles that are so necessary for community? Any tips on, I guess, how to recruit?
Yeah, so one principle I like to tell the communities is stair step it. So get first, if you identify a possible leader, that's half the battle, right? Like finding someone that you think is like, yes, this person will be really great. And getting to do something small, like make a very small ask. Hey, could you mention to your buddy, the fire chief, that we're doing this emergency readiness effort and we'd really love to have his or her insights. Would you mind just asking them because you know them? Like that would be, I'm just making this up, but it's like a small ask. And then it's like, you are so well connected in the community, we're struggling with X, whatever that is. How to raise enough money to do our walking track and fitness track that we wanna do outside. And you have a lot of great ideas. Would you be willing to come to a board meeting for 30 minutes and just help us brainstorm? Because you know so many people and you're so well connected. You probably have an insight that none of us would have thought of. First of all, who doesn't love hearing that? Like, "Hey, I have insight," you know? But then you're like, getting them to come to a board meeting and you're inviting them into a juicy conversation, right? This is something the community really wants and it's a struggle and you're asking for their help. So making these little small asks so they kind of get to taste it first. So it's not just a blind ask like out of the blue, like you kind of put the tenderizer on them.
I love that, Susan, because I think I think when people are asked to be in leadership, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, responsibility, burden, hardship, time, like, oh, this feels like too much. But when you stair step it like that, you start to see the joy in leadership. Like, I'm really having this positive effect. I am enjoying new people to network with. I am meeting new people. I am learning new skills. And for me, that's what getting involved with our community center was like I was just say it was just that. It was that slight invite, like, "Hey, do you wanna help with this?" And then I was like, "Wow, this feels really great to be involved with this group of people, and then look how positive this effect is," and I definitely got hooked on it. It's like, this is so much fun to be of such service to my community and see such positive things happen, and I think once you kinda get bitten by the bug, it's fun, and then once it's so rewarding, then it's not so hard to say, "Hey, you wanna sit on the board?" Like, This is part of your mission of life, is to be of service to your community. And I think it's great to say it that way. And I appreciate it too, because I'll be using that in the future.
I know one of the techniques we use as well, because it's very similar to what you're talking about, but is to get help with our committees. And that's certainly how I was roped in. I was supposed to only be doing social media. And next thing you know, okay, I'm on all the committees and on the board. And now I'm the secretary. How did that happen? I don't know. I think it was Anna, but yeah.
Yes, brilliant. And actually that, you just touched on what I would consider another, like, you asked like a sign for when a community is kind of ready to lead the charge. I'll just add to that at the next level rather than, because they're always leading the charge, but at the next level is they have committees. Some of the community centers don't, and the ones that do are getting a lot more accomplished. And I think, and I want to underscore something you just said too, which was that, you need to also let, if you make those small asks, let that person participate in the win, in the success. Make sure that feedback loop gets back to them like, hey, guess what? We did what you said and X happened. Thank you so much. So that's sort of the overarching tip for all volunteers is everyone. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. He's the founder of Nonviolent Communication. He said, the basic need that all humans have is to contribute to life. That's such a beautiful way of viewing humanity that we all, like, no matter what we're doing, trying to get our needs met at the, sort of like the core of it, the base of it is we're trying to make life more wonderful somehow. So when anytime someone volunteers, if you can help them see how their volunteerism will help more make life more wonderful, and then afterward show them how it made life more wonderful, they'll be much more excited to continue participating, just like you guys.
Susan, I know that I've been impressed by literally how much y'all accomplish. It seems like you're always coming back into the circle. I mean, like Susan's doing this or WNC Communities is doing that. And can you speak to how you learned to be more nimble during our crisis response during Hurricane Helene? Because I know y'all went into overdrive. You were helping with so many things. Like, what did that experience teach you about how you all function and how you can do it better?
Well, first of all, our organization, when we went through a process not terribly long ago since I started there, of coming up with our core values. And one of the things that kept coming up over and over again was this idea of being nimble. That's interesting to use that word, and opportunity ready. And so that's actually ended up being expressed in some of our verbiage about our values. Anyway, so that's kind of in our DNA already. Um, and one of our long-term volunteers who's been on our board and volunteered with us for ages and ages, LT Ward, he had the brilliant foresight to create an LLC within as part of our organization to handle whatever regional needs arose, like emergency type needs. So we were already set up in that regard. But then when it comes to like reviewing, like during Helene, 400 farmer applications. I think what we learned is, yes, we're good at getting money out the door quickly. We're good at partnering. We enlisted North Carolina Cooperative Extension to sort of like vet the applicants to make sure they were legitimate farm businesses, for example. So that part was good. And then we just had to look at the needs and figure out, where do we, where do we, how do we help? But it was what we didn't anticipate is the intensity and the overwhelming amount of need there was. And when we first got this huge chunk of money, both from funders and donors to give away, we were like, yes, we got all this money. This is so great. But then when the application started coming in, I mean, we all kind of went through like a little bit of, well, honestly, PTSD from reading. Like when I like read like 400 applications of people's disasters, it was really intense. So I think one of the things we learned was, yes, we can do it, and The next time this rolls around, we need more support, more staff to spread the load um, so that, we can stay in the game and stay, mentally healthy and emotionally healthy as we're serving everyone. 'Cause it was incredible. Of course, nobody had seen anything like Helene, so how do you prepare for that?
It sounds like what you're talking about is collaboration. We really need more collaborators, more people. Like collaboration is so core to your guys' mission. Um, I'm curious if you have any good examples of what genuine collaboration would look like on the ground, especially in moments where like priorities might differ when partners are trying to work together.
Well, I could talk about the collaboration on the ground part easily. The part where partners differ, I'll have to think about that more. So let me start with the first part. Um, yeah, for me, the juiciest, most exciting example of that is our emergency readiness network. I just get such a charge out of that. And basically, what we did was in October, right after Helene, I started reaching out to the communities to find out, hey, are you guys okay? Like, what's going on the ground out there? What help do you need? And then started convening the community centers that had the capacity on Zoom and sharing with each other, like, what's going on? What are we finding that's working? What are we struggling with? And eventually discovered that some areas were getting like an oversupply of different things, whether it was baby diapers or heaters, and other areas desperately needed those items. So we started coordinating supply drops. So that was how the emergency readiness network started. But then once, those immediate needs started to taper off a little bit, the conversation shifted. And I said, well, what do you guys feel like needs to happen now? And they're like, we want to be ready for the next time something like this hits. We everyone did a great job. It is incredible what the community centers did. Just absolutely bootstrapped it and made it happen for their communities. And, what if we got trained? What if we actually had a plan in place? What if we really knew exactly what we were going to do? How amazing would that be? So we have been meeting twice a month ever since January to work on that very thing. January of this year, of 2025. So, um, we're working on creating standard operating procedures. And, actually, this is a small point where someone differed. Someone was like, this is maybe taking a long time. We should just let someone with expertise develop this and bring it to us. And, so I kinda checked in with the community leaders, and they were like, "No, this is rich. These conversations, like, it's helping us process what happened." And I know from my standpoint, I was hearing their stories and how the things that happened, and I'm like, "Wow, I had no idea that was going on." And being able to track that and figure out, well, what would we do about it if that happened again? Like, how do we prepare for that? Is invaluable, and you wouldn't get that from just, having, like, someone get in a committee and kinda figure it out and then bring it back. Hearing everyone's specific stories is key, and they are really bonding, everyone there is getting to know each other. They're working side by side, like, or they're having to really think through, like, "What do we do?" I think it's precious time spent in collaborating.
So shifting from past and present to future, what are you most hopeful for about the future of WNC communities in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, wait, let me clarify that question. When you say WC communities, do you mean our organization or our region?
I would say our region. I think you have a really unique perspective on what's happening out there in so many different places. I would be curious about your perspective from a bird's eye view. Like what do you see? What waves of trends do you see happening that you feel like really encouraged about? Or things that maybe people should know that you would be the one person in or the one organization in that vein that would be able to say, "Hey, like we see this happening. Like let's all make a left turn or let's keep going." So some guidance towards your your bounty of experience to share with maybe other community leaders who are listening, or other people in other parts of the world who are trying to do the same things that you're doing.
I don't mean this to sound like self-serving for our organization, but I think that community centers are the glue. They really are for a region. Um, because they are, by their nature, they're designed to be places for neighbors to gather and get to know each other and work side by side on issues across political and religious differences. They're not affiliated with a specific church or anything like that, or any particular political party. So to me, they are sort of the natural it's funny because during Helene, everybody was like, "Oh, we're gonna create resilience hubs." And I'm like, "What? Community centers are resilience hubs by definition. That's what they do all day long is they respond to their community's needs." So anyway, I guess that is a big one, that community centers are the glue. And now that we're all very carefully working together, whether it's just coming together on a coffee hour to share best practices, like here's this great medical clinic we set up in our community center. Wow, how can everyone else do that? Or if, the emergency readiness network, where we're coming up with shared understanding of how we as a region are going to come and help each other out. So if there's a disaster in Macon County, how are we all going to help Macon? If there's one in Watauga, how are we all going to help Watauga? I think that gives me a ton of hope. It really tremendously builds resilience. And I think it's a model not just for emergencies, but everything like food security, for example, which I think is really a huge issue that needs to be addressed much more comprehensively.
There was one thing you could accelerate in this region outside of funding. What would you want to invest in?
Permaculture, if I'm really being honest. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like community centers could be sort of the, what do I wanna say? Like, I guess demonstration sites for permaculture. And for listeners who don't know what permaculture is, it is the word permanent and culture pushed together. It was originated long time ago from basically it came from studying indigenous cultures and trying to understand how are they able to live in the same place for tens of thousands of years without wrecking the joint. And and then those principles for how they live were distilled down like, oh, here are the principles. So if we live that by those principles, we should be okay, right? So I think community centers could set up permaculture demonstration sites where they're collecting their own energy, their own water, they're growing food. And when I say that, I don't just mean like annuals in a vegetable garden. I mean every plant on the premises creates food or medicine of some kind. Those kinds of basics, getting our basics covered, because I do think our food system is in for several shocks with weather changes. And then, you've got other things going on in the larger picture that are affecting people's ability to pay for their food. So, the more we can create these examples of home-based stability, I think that's really key, and that's something that I really hope to be championing in the coming year or 2, as a new thing that WC Communities will be doing.
So when I first moved to Western North Carolina, and I'm like, we're gonna buy land, I'm gonna get animals, I'm gonna learn how to garden. I went down the permaculture rabbit hole and I actually took a whole like permaculture gardening class. There's the whole course that I haven't done yet, but like I started reading up on sustainable farming, rotational grazing, even something as simple as like where your house is and where you put everything around your house. It all depends on how far you want to go or how frequently you want to access it. And we're sort of fixing up an old farmhouse right now. And I'm literally planning on putting my freezers in a place. I'm like thinking through the permaculture problem of like, how many times do I have to walk over to my freezer. No, I don't want it in a shed an acre away. Like I want it close to me so that and talking about if you have chickens, what do you do with the like chicken poop and turns out you can create compost and it's so big.
Or chicken tractors.
Chicken tractors. I mean, I first of all, I did not expect that answer from you at all. And then I'm delighted because we can have a whole nother podcast on permaculture.
Oh, great. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I in a past what feels like a past life, I did a permaculture design. I had my own business for 7 years doing that and teaching permaculture.
Wow, Susan, we need to bring you out to the community center.
I went all the way to Sweden to get a master's degree in sustainable development and came out of that going, you know what? Permaculture is the answer. I knew that before I got here, and I still believe permaculture is the answer.
That's so great because I think there's trends happening in our area in Madison County that are going in that direction. We have food coalitions and all sorts of things happening because people instinctually know this. They instinctually know this. And so I'm so excited to hear you say that too, because I want to do that at my house too. Like, I want to know what I can rotationally plant, how I can do it, how I can work with others, how we can do the community center. So please sign me up for anything you're doing with that because I want to know everything.
Anna wants ducks. She's been talking about it for a long time. And ducks are good for your garden because they won't like do the thing the chickens do. And so we're going down that rabbit hole. I'm telling you. Yeah.
Yeah, my social media has like little Swiss chalets for ducks, and I'm like, oh, they're so cute. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think this is such a fascinating thing, and I'm so excited that you all are doing this because so many people are interested in, and I hope to have one of my dearest friends on soon, who is an ethnobotanist, and he is an expert in some of these things. So maybe we'll be talking about it more. It'll be really fun.
Let's make it happen.
Yes, we need to have you back on again. Thank you so much for coming on today, talking to us about community development. I mean, I I get so many emails from you just about like what's happening, and there's so many things that I wanna. You really make me want to be more a part of my community, Spring Creek, and then the greater Western North Carolina. You really,
I love hearing that. Thank you. That's high praise. Well, and I think just right back at you, you guys are doing such great work at Spring Creek. And I got a great email from Katie Tobin out at Newfound in Buncombe County who hit you guys up for some tips for social media. And she was just glowing, like, they were so encouraging. And now I've taken some baby steps and it's starting to work. I'm so excited. So thank you for all you keep doing to help not just your own community, but other communities in our network. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
we got to keep working together for sure. Yeah, for any of you guys out there listening, if you really like this podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe and follow. It's the best way to support WNC HeartBEAT. As well, if you like this conversation, be sure to listen to our most recent podcast where we talked to Bill Downey from the Tourism Development Authority. We specifically talked about the importance of tourism in Western North Carolina and Madison County, especially after Hurricane Helene. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. Bye.